Thank you.
Okay, we're all set to start the meeting.
Okay, can I start?
Yes.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. This is the Finance and Claims Committee meeting of September 11th. And we're called to order at 7:03. The first order of business is roll call. I have Ann Winnistrand, Johann Lopez, and myself. That's 3 people. We do not have a quorum, so we're not going to take a vote on anything tonight. Next, we'll go to the acceptance of the minutes, but is there any changes? I know there are a couple of changes to the minutes. Thank you to Lisa Biagirelli, who was good enough to point out the fact that Sharon Connor's name was spelled wrong. It should be C-O-N-N-E-R-S, not O-R. And that's on page 3 and page 5. Did anybody see any other changes? Okay, so we'll hold off and we can approve those at our next meeting. Next is public participation. Is there anybody out there online?
There are no other attendees.
Okay, so we'll leave that open for a minute. But if there's nobody out there anyway, so why don't we just close public participation? For the record, before we get into anything else, I'd also just like to take a minute and just to recognize a moment of silence, and also to recognize Greg Burnett's significant contributions over the many years that he's been chairman of this committee. And not only that, but as a great stalwart of the BET. He set the bar extremely high. So why don't we just take a moment to remember him? Okay, on to business, the way Greg would have liked it to be. The first item on the agenda is the Oak Hills Park Authority monthly financial statements for June and July. See, we have Mr. Dutton with us. Mr. Dutton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Frere. Pleasure to be here, I think. So June and July. June is the actual financial commentary. I believe you received copies. That is the end of our fiscal year. And just a brief overview from the top as to how did we do. Well, we actually did quite well, all things being equal. Just from the revenue side, our total revenue is $2,717,000. Which was $292,000 over our budgeted revenue. Our expenses were $2,011,000, which were only $3,000 over budget. So a $292,000 increase in revenue and only $3,000 worth of expenses. So our net income basically was $706,000. This is what the money we made more in revenue expenses. So $706,000 worth of net income. So what do we do with that money? Well, we give $133,000 of it to the city, a debt payment. This is based upon the number of rounds that we had, 46,000 rounds that we had during the year. We pay an amount for each round to the city, and that came to $133,000. We paid $157,000 worth of commercial debt. We lease our carts. Jim Shell, our superintendent, also, has equipment he buys. We actually lease that as well. We also spent $300,000 on capital expenses, capital for this last fiscal year. The biggest part of that was our first part of our bunker program, our trap program, which was 50% completed, and we are now in the second phase of that. We will complete the renovation of our traps and bunkers, the majority of them, by the end of this fiscal year. So we made $706,000. We spent $606,000 through debt and leasing and capital expense, and we were able to take $100,000 and put it into next year's, budget. Hopefully, the capital budget for next year. We did end the year in with $866,000 worth of cash on hand. Now, it is our busiest time. It is the time when we would have money. And the actual money that we made was $100,000 more than was actually made in the same fiscal year last year. So overall, I think a good year for Oak Hills for the June financials. So I don't know if any member has any questions. I'll be happy to answer them, I hope.
I have a question.
I would expect nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
So if I look at the July cash, we've got about over $1 million in cash. And in one account, we have close to $550,000 in cash. These are all in money market fund. It looks like they're all in money market funds, except for that one account, which is almost $550,000. That's a lot of cash. So there's two things. First of all, with this much cash on hand, is it possible to draw or pay down some of the debt that still owe the city? And I can't believe I'm saying this, but with that much cash on hand, it might be time to start to increase the amount of cash that we give to the city. The only caveat there is that, are we going to spend another $1 million this year? I mean, if your forecasting has always been, one could say maybe you're a little conservative on your forecasting and budgeting because you always beat the budget. So if everything remained even, you would have another $1 million next year. Are you have plans for spending another $1 million of capital?
So Jim, the point is well made. Obviously, now we have this money now. When September, October comes, November, December, January, February, we eat into that cash. Now, we don't eat into $1 million of it, but we do eat into that cash. And I remember, when I first came on the authority, there were times when we actually had to access our credit line because we ran out of cash. Obviously, that will not happen again. So you must understand that we're at our peak right now. But and I appreciate what you're saying about a lot of money. Can we pay the city back? But there are still a lot of priorities on the capital side on things that need to get done, because I think there's so many years when there was no deferred maintenance done at Oak Hills. And yes, we're getting the bunkers done. That's another $180,000. They will get done, but there are still car paths to be done. And you're a golfer. There are still, we did do car paths, but we didn't do them all. And there is a lot of car paths still, to be done. Jim Shell's operating area, his maintenance area, it's a disaster, basically. Hasn't been renovated. Roof is not great. There's money's going to need to be spent there. Paving, the car parks are a mess. They need to be repaved. There is, I think, plenty of deferred maintenance still that we need to do. We don't want to all do it in 1 year, spread it out a bit. So that's my pushback a little on, the amount, how well we're doing. And, I think this is the apex. We're at 46,000 rounds now. I don't think we can do anymore, So, and, we have to be careful on what we're charging now because, we do charge more, than a lot of other, courses close to us, public courses. And I am looking, next year's budget to keep the rates down for Norwalk residents, freeze them or do something, keep them really low because we need to give something back. So I do think there's still more capital to be spent that has not been spent in the times when we weren't doing that well.
Do you have a capital needs analysis?
We have gone out 3 years. I don't have it in front of me. I know we're going to spend about $320,000 on the budget this next year. What I can do is put something together over the next 2 to 3 years after that to come up with what, I don't have it off the top of my head, to be honest with you, Jim. But I can prepare it and send a copy to the Finance Committee, for discussion at a future meeting, by all means.
Does anybody else have any questions on that? I think that's a pretty good idea. I think, one looks at all the cash that's sitting there, and granted, it's at the peak season, peak of the season, I should say. And, and we always, we always hear the story that, well, we've got plenty more of things to do. But it would really be nice, I think, to take a look and see what some of those things are, because
Really?
there's other things that we talk about where, we could develop, put in a driving range, we could do this, we could do that, but, there's no plans for it, and it sounds like a nice thing to do, but, is it really the thing that we should be doing? You say if we have all sorts of very expensive equipment. We've got $2 million worth of assets, fixed asset or equipment in a barn that's leaking. That's not a smart thing to do.
Well, that's true. Of that, $500,000 is the golf carts. They're not in a barn that's leaking. They're in the car barn, But yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I will put together that and send a copy to the Finance Committee. Work with my team to come up with the and also water. I didn't really mention water. We were able to fix a pump, spend $20,000, and get some water from underneath us. But it would be so much nicer to be water sufficient, to check if there are any aquifers underneath, and to get that water and pump it up, rather than have to buy city water or to rely on water from the taxing district when during drought conditions. So this is another thing that is part of our expense as well moving forward.
Okay, so maybe we can, at one of our future meetings, maybe a couple of months out,
Yep.
and present what your capital improvement plan looks like and how much it's going to cost.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Happy to do that.
Great.
I can briefly talk about July, and of course, true to form, July, which is first month of the fiscal year. Here again, compared to our budget, we are over budget in revenue. Expenses are over budget. 49,000 over in revenue, 10,000 over in expenses. So we are starting the year on another good note. A lot of this is weather related. I have to also say that we've been the last 2 years. The weather has been dry, but it's been really good as far as weather. So there's people going out there, during the summer. I'm not sure that could continue or not. So anyway.
How's the tennis doing?
Tennis. So I was going to actually bring that up. I was going to talk about that. The 5-year contract with Kings Highway is up now, pretty much. The season is finished. So we put together a team to develop an RFP, working with the city. Thank you, Rob Stowers, for using his offices and his staff. We put together an RFP through the city process. And we developed the RFP. It is now out, and we are soliciting entities to see if we're interested in running the tennis program at Oak Hills for the next 5 years, or whatever term we determine. So that process is ongoing at the moment. RFP went live on the 28th of August. We've had a walkthrough already, and there is interest from other entities, which is good. So, Kings Highway has did a very good job and with us all on time, but it's always good to go out there and see what the competition is and what other options there are. So we should have someone in place within 2 months, and we will start the season next year. With a new, or either with Kings Highway or a new vendor, basically.
Is Robert Stover helping out on that?
Robert Stowes is on our committee. He's on my committee. Yeah, he's very much involved.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, any other questions for Alan? Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Dutton.
Prayer, pleasure as always. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next on the list is Paul Gorman, the tax assessor's report. What's new in the tax assessor area?
Oh, thank you very much. We're having loads of fun right now. The biggest thing going on is we issued a request for income and expense statements back in April. They were due by June 1st or by July 1st if they had applied for an extension to get the information in. And at the end of August, we issued approximately 655 bills to organizations that did not file their income and expense forms. And that was out of approximately 1,900 accounts that we sent information out to. So we're running at
How many was that?
about 1,900 buildings or property owners received I&E requests. And we had 655 or so that did not respond.
Wow, that's a
And
lot. Is that
Yeah.
is that unusual?
I have not done a comparison to prior assessors' experiences going back to, because last year was not a perfect year. We issued them a little bit late. And we didn't issue penalties because of that. In the prior year were things that were done by Michael Stewart and Bill Ford, and I haven't analyzed their return rate because I have to go back to our old billing system and be able to draw out that information. But in my general opinion, yes, that's a high rate. But I just don't know if it's higher than normal here. But it is higher than other towns that I've worked in. But we also, we have more companies that did not respond than most communities that surround us actually have companies to ask information from. So we just have a lot of them.
Are they just little mom and pop shops, or is it major corporations? Or
As far as people that didn't file, it's all types. And the reasons that they didn't file when they call, because the bills are what generate the complaints from people getting the 10% penalty, because some of the penalties are pretty significant because it's a 10% bump to your assessment, which adds taxes. And I'm getting a lot of phone calls of, I didn't receive it. I'm getting a lot of phone calls of, what if I bring it down right now? I forgot to do it. I had one person who handed it in on June 30th and said, well, I should only be penalized for a month. All the excuses, like I said, they run the full gamut of anything people can think of to try to get out of it. Unfortunately, I'm not the arbiter of justice here. The state statute governing I&Es is very succinct and very straightforward. In a nutshell, it says, if I send it, you have to send it back. If you don't send it back, I shall impose a 10% penalty. There's no wiggle room. There's no if clauses. There's no local option to waive it. I do know that unfortunately there are some towns and cities throughout the state of Connecticut that, with no statutory authority, do waive things when they get them late. But by statute, you're not allowed to do that. And
Well,
I'm
I can
hoping I'm hoping to get a much better response next year, because what we're going to implement next year is we're going to do a second mailing about halfway through the filing period to all the people that we don't have responses from yet. We're going to send a secondary letter that says, hey, it's May 15th. We haven't received your I&E submission yet. Please make sure that you get it to us by June 1st, or call or email me to request an extension if you need time to get the form filled out.
So are those people still billed the tax? We still tax them?
Which people?
Those that haven't submitted their INE?
Yeah, we had our QDS sent out a batch of bills on September 1st to all the people that did not file, with an added portion of the tax. So if you owed $2,000 for your penalty, $1,000 was due for the first half, so that was due within 30 days. And then the other $1,000 was added to your second half payment that will be due during the month of January. And that I can give you a total of what that came out to upon calculation. Just give me 1 second. I gotta go to my email. And as it stands now, we sent out bills in the amount of $2,445,206.
Mhm.
Not to shock anyone, but don't know if we're gonna get all that, because I mean, people, it's all
So
about
let
whether or not the
me-
people pay.
So, but I'm confused a little bit. So that $2 million is what they have not submitted, or how much of that is past due, so to speak,
No, this has nothing to do with past due. This is, if you had a property that had $1 million assessment,
Yeah,
and you did not submit your INE, you would get what's called a 10% penalty on your assessment. So that would be $100,000 of assessed value. And if you're in District 3, the mill rate is 23.9001. It would be $100,000 times that mill rate, and that's what your penalty is. It's not that it's past due, it's a new penalty being assigned to you, and that's what the separate billing was for.
okay, I got it now. So, and that's just for the 600 some odd of businesses that haven't submitted to you?
Correct.
Okay. But are they large businesses, or are they small businesses?
Like I said, it's all over the place. I mean, Jared had a person who was not happy with the answer that I gave him when they came to me, that he went upstairs, and I think his total penalty was for about $1,000 for the whole year. And I've got penalties that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it runs from the mom and pop shop to the Costco kind of size building.
But it's worth $2 million.
Yeah. Overall,
The
between
penalty,
all of
the
them.
penalty amount.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
penalty amount.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
Is that in it? So that we expect that we'll get that money, if all things being equal, we would, if nobody had any qualms about it, we'd be able to get that money in when, January?
Well, some of it's coming in now and some of it will come in January, because it's just like your real estate taxes. It's broken up into first half, second half.
Right. That's incredible, $2 million. I mean, where have we been? I mean, how did something like that creep up in the past? I mean, we changed something that,
I would have to run there were penalties issued in the 2022 grand list as well. But Bill Ford at the time, he was able to get the penalties right into the real estate bill file up front. It looked like, when I went in and looked at those bills, it actually got billed at the same time as the real estate taxes as a line item on the bill. So it was right in the initial tax levy. In this case, because it was the first time I was running it, and we wanted to have some separation so that people would know exactly what they were getting. and we billed it at the end of August as a separate billing.
Okay,
So I don't know how much they did in 2022 or 2021. I could try to glean that information out of the QDS system or out of Munis to be able to see how, because it's as a separate penalty code. So I should be able to run a report to see what years past were. But Norwalk has for multiple years been sending out the INEs and assessing penalties. But as I explained to Jared the other day, you can't, it's not something that I would like be putting into the budget of counting on it. It's like a person who makes a lot of overtime, but you don't want to use overtime when you apply for a mortgage because you don't know. If all of a sudden next year I only have 300 people not file, that 2.4 might go down to 1 or 750, depending upon who the 300 people are. So it could be all over the place. So it's not something that I would count on.
Yeah, so we're gonna continue to talk about it, Jim, because I asked Paul the same question you did about what's happened in the past, and so I know he's got to do some more digging on it and through different systems that have been used, and so you know, I want to see what that dollar amount was each year, and I don't want to over project what this could potentially bring in. But if we see that in the last 7-10 years, if we can go back that far, that there was a fairly consistent amount, then I think it would be reasonable to put something into the budget.
Yeah.
But I'm sensitive what Paul's saying as well, which
Yeah.
which is that it's not something that we can look at and say, all right, we got 2 million this year, we can put 2 million into the budget next year. We would look at it and if we were to project something into the budget, it would be a conservative amount.
yeah.
And I also
mean,
think what Paul mentioned is a good idea too, which is to send a reminder to those who have not paid, because it's not an insignificant amount to the businesses. And so I think to give them a second opportunity to pay in case there was a freak accident, something happened to the bill, that there's another opportunity for them to pay on time, because it can be a significant amount.
Yeah. But if we don't address it, it just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's not like overtime either. I mean, you see a pattern with overtime, if you're gonna need overtime. I have this argument I used to have this argument with the fire department all the time, that I thought that the amount that they put in their budget for overtime was always much more than they actually had. And that, why are we budgeting that money if we don't really need it? We don't need that much. But still, you got to put something in there, and you base it on what your performance was in prior years.
Agreed.
Just so that you understand, my example was from a personal standpoint, a person applying for a loan that's had a really good year or two because of extra overtime. Banks are not going to make you a loan based on your inflated income from overtime. That's all I was saying, is that I don't want you guys to budget for 2 million when it could vary year to year. Like Jared said, we're going to try to put together a chart of what it's been like for a certain number of years past, and then come up with what we feel as though might be a good number to be able to count on.
Great.
Okay.
I wasn't preaching to you.
No, I know. I just want to make sure that I'm making myself clear.
Okay.
The next thing is municipal tax service, the car sweep that we're doing.
I'm sorry, before you go in, Lisa Biagirelli had her hand up. Do you have something to say on this before we got into the MTS?
Yeah, if I could just add too, we have changes to our levy all year long for any number of reasons. So that monthly report that I provide to you, it'll tell you the original levy and then the corrected levy, which is the net of changes. So
Right.
some things get added and some things get deleted, whether it's motor vehicle tax or real estate tax. So in this case, what he's talking about, they got an original bill.
Yeah.
Got an original bill in July, which was due in 2 installments. This was almost like an added on bill. He increased their assessment and sent them another bill. So it was a change to the levy. And every year we have things like that that bring the levy up or down. And that was my only addition to the commentary.
Yeah, no, I recognize that. Thank you. I'm sorry, Paul, go ahead.
That's okay.
On the MPS
So
you're talking about.
municipal tax services, we had our first billing run. And our first billing run was for 486 bills. And the city net of those bills after the MTS fee of 38%, if all the bills get paid, the city would net $85,771.13. So that is the bills that were just from them data mining our prior grand lists for gaps in registration, like where people had a car in 21 and 22, but then it didn't show up in our 23, but then it showed up in our 24 list. So we billed them for the 23 because they were sent notices saying, hey, you may be liable for 2023. And if they didn't respond, or if they didn't have proof that the car wasn't here, we sent them a bill for 2023. In some
Okay.
cases, we've had people get bills for all 3 years that we are auditing for. The next step in this is the first billing that we'll be doing when they complete their complete the first full sweep of the city for just seeing cars that are parked on our roads or parked in people's driveways that they are not registered to the city of Norwalk. And then, so they'll issue letters saying you may have a tax liability to the city of Norwalk. If you disagree with what we're saying, please call this number or email us with information that backs up why you shouldn't be billed by the city of Norwalk. I had asked MTS earlier today for an update of where they're at for that next step, but by the time we started today, I had not heard back from them. So I'm going to check in with them again tomorrow. And hopefully by next month, I'll have a further update for you as to when that next billing round will go out. Those will tend to be much larger than what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
I hope, because that's the goal. We're going to try to get everything that we're supposed to be getting. And I think the city sweeps are going to be more profitable than the data mining.
Mhm.
The next thing that we have going on here in the assessor's office is in the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending out the business personal property declaration forms to all the businesses that are registered with the city of Norwalk or that we found through discovery over the course of the past year. And their due date for filing is November 1st. Or they can, if for some reason they do not believe that they can complete the filing by November 1st, they can call or email me and request an extension up to December 15th. It could be as short as a 5-day request, or it could be as long as the 45-day request.
Okay.
And then the last big thing that's going on with the fall is that it's our year, the whole state year actually, because we all run on the same schedule for quadrennial filings for exempt organizations. So we sent out to all our current exempt organizations the form that they need to fill out with the instructions on what backup documentation we need for them to continue to receive their exemption. And that due date is also November 1st and can be extended by 30 days.
How do we get the word out about that?
About what?
About exempt organizations?
That the quadrennial is due?
Yeah.
What
if it's a new company,
send
what
it
if
certified, so we're gonna know if they received it or not. Because we
No,
sent it.
no, I meant, how do we know that you're including everybody that you should include?
I mean, we don't advertise. It's not something that the state requires us to do any kind of a posting. And trust me, these exempt organizations, they know when they come into town, I'm usually one of their first calls. To find out when they can apply and what's the program. I mean, and we actually have an ordinance on file, I forget the number, but there is an ordinance that actually technically allows me to exempt an organization mid-year. As soon as as long as when they move in, when they buy a property, if they start using it right away for its intended purpose. So if a church buys a building and it's all set to go and they start being a church on day one, technically I could exempt them on day one, even though it's mid-year. Whereas the typical statute without the local option is if it started out the year as a paying taxpayer and it gets bought by an exempt organization mid-year, the exempt organization would have to pay taxes throughout the end of the tax year and then become exempt the following year. But the state allows for the local option that Norwalk apparently adopted, and we created the ordinance to allow applying for and receiving upon purchase, provided that all the rules are met.
Okay,
Right, and that pretty much is what's going on here in the assessor's office. If anybody has any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
any questions? Okay, thanks very much, Paul.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
See you all next month.
I do have a question for you
Sure.
relating to garbage collection. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Okay. I tried to avoid that topic here because, but yes, feel free to give me a call. I'm going to be a little late tomorrow because I have a doctor's appointment. So anytime after 10 o'clock should be good.
But you familiar with what I'm going to ask you about people that have been getting tax or have been assessed for being condominiums or it relates to the new garbage contract?
So basically what you're asking is if somebody has been being billed for the garbage, but is no longer getting it or never had received it.
Yeah,
Once DPW gives me a list, we're going to be updating everything and QDS will be doing a script run through our database to issue CSCs, certificates of correction, sorry, to everybody that either A, needs to be increased for getting garbage that was in a no garbage district, and anybody that's in a garbage district that should be in a no garbage district will get a reduction. Now, just to bear in mind, and Jared and I've had discussions about this, we don't charge a lot for garbage, so no one's going to Jamaica on what we're going to be giving them back. On a $500,000 assessment house, it's $100. So it's not a big boon either way. But once DPW gives me a final list, that's when I start doing what I have to do on my end between my software provider for my real estate program. And then once I get that updated properly, then I work with QDS for the billing program to update it to correct the bills.
okay.
But the getting to the end line is out of my hands. It's in another department's hands to finalize the list. I'm the implementer, not the writer.
But don't they get the information from you, whether somebody's being charged for garbage or not?
Well, my database is used to tell currently who has it, but so they have that list. They know
Oh, yeah.
where they're redefining that list with their
Yes.
list.
Yeah,
They're-
now they have that information now
Yeah,
because of
they have
the
everything.
codes on there, yeah, okay.
Because it all came from them anyway. It's the assessor's office wasn't the one that decided who did and didn't get garbage. They just used our system as the implementation tool.
Yeah,
And the same thing's gonna happen here. DPW is gonna say, hey, these 17,000 houses are now our garbage customers. The other 12,000 parcels are not our garbage customers. And we're gonna have to go and say, okay, how many of these 17,000 are currently garbage customers? And how many of them are currently not garbage customers, and convert the ones back and forth that we need to?
Right,
You got the plan in place, we just have to get the list to work with.
okay.
And if
Yeah,
you need
there's,
any
there's a lot
further-
of questions. People are very confused about it.
Oh, trust me, I know. I haven't had to take too many garbage calls lately, but that's because I sent out the I&E bills.
Okay,
Anything else?
I don't have anything else. Anybody else? Well, thanks very much, Paul.
My pleasure. You guys have a great evening.
Okay, you too. All right, next up we have,
Lisa B.
Lisa, it's you, my favorite subject is tax collections.
Outstanding. It's my favorite subject too.
Hmm.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're
Okay,
fine.
great. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge the loss of Gregory Burnett, who was terrific on this committee and ran a great meeting.
Yeah,
And you are following in his footsteps tonight. We had not yet closed our month of August when I wrote the narrative. So because there was no meeting last month, I basically used July figures and wrote a narrative for July. Since then, today, we actually did close the month. So I can update just the collection percentages. Whereas at the end of July, we were at 45.46. As of the end of August, we were at 52.03, and I'll send you those. I sent them to Chitsame right before the meeting. With the 60-day figures, we went from, where were we in July? The prior grand list year, we were at 98.7, and we're now at 98.82. So just a little bit higher, not quite as high as Greg would have wanted it to be 98.9, but we didn't make it. But still 98.82 is a good collection rate for the levy as high as ours is. With the current collection actually went really well this year, primarily because we got the bills out so early. We collected about 25% of our motor vehicle levy in the month of June. So we really didn't have the kind of lines and agitation from people waiting in line that we normally have. So it is my fondest wish that we are able to do that again in future collections and get those bills out as early as we can, which was one of the reasons why I was so concerned about the charter changes and having that mill rate set any later than the middle of May, because if that is what happens, we will not be able to do that again. The middle of May is about as late as we can let it go. So the collection went really well. We also, since the collection ended, we issued delinquent notices. We did them early. They went out the very end of August. So we did for all tax types: real estate, motor vehicle, business, personal property. We gave people September interest on those, and we're collecting a good amount of money on those now. The other news, it was kind of a long narrative this month because there was really a lot going on. As Paul mentioned, the MTS municipal tax services bills, those were issued with a September 12th pay by date. So once we closed our month of August, we were able to see how much we collected in August on those. And Paul mentioned what was billed, but through just the end of August, we had collected about $49,000, including their fee. So we netted about 30 grand. And that's not even everything because we gave them until September 12th, but we had 162 payments. They got about 25,000, including all their fees, and will net about $30,000. So that was what we got from MTS.
Mhm.
We also were working on this tax sale for the zoning department for zoning fees. And we started with about 15 properties. There were zoning fees, there were blight fees, and there were 2 large sewer use accounts that were our own. The sewer use accounts came in. Most of the zoning accounts have come in. We're left with 2 properties. One is mostly blight, one is mostly zoning. The blight one was in our prior sale. We were not able to collect on it because the owner filed for bankruptcy. But that is our biggest one. And we have collected over $200,000 in the zoning fees and the blight fees. And as I mentioned in the report, I really do not think that those fees would have been paid but for the tax sale. Now, most of them were for relatively small amounts, $5,000, $12,000. There was one that was 40-something thousand, but we did collect them on behalf of zoning. So what we had set out to do absolutely worked. It was a lot of work. It still is a lot of work, even though it's just a small sale with 15 properties, but it was a lot of work. The sale is scheduled for Thursday, September 18th. We are holding it, even though we are left with 2. If those 2 do not pay, or for some reason have to be taken out due to bankruptcy filing or whatever, we will hold it in the community room. And it should be relatively short. It should take about an hour. But we're gearing up for that because it looks like we will be having it. So I'm glad to answer any questions you have about that. I'm very pleased with it because we were the first municipality in the state to implement, to use it with the blessing of the new law that was changed as of October 1st of last year. So that was why we did this sale relatively quickly. Because we wanted to have it done during this fiscal year. We will have a regular tax sale for delinquent taxes and for blight and for zoning and whatever anyone else wants to give us, probably next summer. But it was tricky doing it this year so quickly because we started working on it in June and the sale is next week. But it worked, and I'm happy with how well it worked. I'm happy with how the collection went. There was something else I wanted to tell you too. I'm trying to think what it is.
The cannabis.
Oh yeah, the cannabis. We are up to now over $400,000 in cannabis receipts.
Is that cumulative or is that year to date?
I'm giving you cumulative because we started in April of last year, I think. So I've just been keeping track of it cumulatively because I think the way the finance department intends to handle it is when it reaches a certain amount, they will direct it to where it is supposed to go because by law, those funds need to be spent in a certain way. And I'm not a part of that discussion. I'm just the receiver.
You just collect it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Going back to the blight, again, how does that work? Is it if I've gotten several fines for not cleaning up my blighted property? I've got this car on the front lawn that's rusting, and they charge me and they give me I guess they give me a summons, and I don't pay that, and then that eventually could lead to a lien being placed on my house.
Correct.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it works. The way that it works for blight and for zoning, they have a hearing process where the homeowner is notified and they are able to come in and have a hearing with, I think it's like a third party official that they have conducting the hearing.
Yeah.
And and that person sets the fine. And then they go to court. Our law department goes to court and they get a judge to permit them to file the lien on the land records, which is a little different than how my liens work because I don't need to go to court. I just file my own. But in
Yeah.
their case, they do have to go before a judge. The lien gets filed in the land records, and heretofore, we were able to include blight in tax sales. We've been collecting on blight for years through the tax sale process and very successfully, but we were not able to do that with regard to the zoning fines because we didn't have the statutory authority. That is what changed. They actually wrote the law based on the blight statute to allow us to do it. And it was Norwalk's idea to do that, to enable us to enforce collection because those liens were filed, but no one really paid attention to them, maybe until the property was being sold, and they needed to have clear title and they would pay off the lien.
Yeah.
But we don't want to wait. We want to get it taken care of now. So that's the financial end of it. The other end of it is the idea that you want to clean up the blight or you want to clean up the zoning violation. So
Right.
that's a whole nother part of it that's dealt with by those departments, because in addition to collecting the funds, they still want to satisfy the neighborhood and have the quality of life issues addressed and clean the problem up, have remediation of the issue.
Right. Okay. But that was only what, 14 houses that amounted to about $400,000?
There were a couple had to come out because there was a technical problem with one. One of the attorneys in the law department told me he thought I should take it out, and so I did. And then there was another one that we actually made a technical mistake ourselves. The lien was filed the same day that someone else took ownership of the property, and it didn't come up in the title search. And so we took, and that property has actually been remediated. There is no longer any blight on that property. The property was very well cleaned up, and we had included that property in our prior tax sale for blight. And we collected about $80,000 on that property from a former tax sale for blight. So that has been remediated and it's fine. And then another property owner has gone to court to try to get an injunction to stop the sale. So we're going to court next week to try to be allowed to have the sale, which by statute, we are supposed to be allowed to have the sale. They're not supposed to get an injunction to stop a tax sale. But judges can do whatever they want. So we have to go to court and argue our case. But that's what I mean. This whole thing has been a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I mean, it's a big surprise to the property owners that all of a sudden they're getting a notice of sale, whereas before they never got anything like that. So we did quite a bit of explaining to help them to understand what we were doing. But most of the fines were relatively small, and by relatively small, I mean $5,000, $10,000, $12,000. There was a big blight one that was like $30,000. We got that one in, I think, earlier this week. But the largest one is the one that was in a prior sale for blight. The blight is $100 a day that it's uncured. So that one is up to about $160,000 that's due on that property. And the property has not been remediated at all.
No.
Not at all.
Well, I think it's a great source of income for the city, and it's nickels and dimes, but the nickels and dimes add up to dollars too. So
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
good, and it cleans up the city.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Anybody have any other questions for Lisa? Well, thanks very much, Lisa. As always, it's a lot to chew on. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. I won't be here next month. I'm going to be on vacation next month. So I'll see you in.
What?
Good for you.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, you can just call in if you want.
Maybe.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Moving along. Next on the list is the Claims Committee report for September and August. I think.
That's me again.
Yeah. I thought I saw. I thought Titzman had told me that there was about 4 items on there or 3 items. Was it 4 items that were over 10,000?
Yes, and I have it written down. It starts on page 33 of your packet, is my stuff. And on page 36, there were 3 special requests that were from August. And then on page, I think 48, there's 1 special request that was for September. And I'll tell you what they were about. Let me find it. Like I said, it was just a real busy month. That's all tax sale stuff. The ones for August, one of them was for 3 bills, all owned by the same individual, but those properties were sold. And the cumulative total for the 3 was 11,256.46. This is Charles Eaton.
Yeah, that's a condominium, I think, that he sold.
Yeah, and then another one was just an erroneous payment by an escrow agent. That's the second one for 18,442.82. And then the Hillcrest Partners one, I think that was also a property sale. So those were the August.
I think that relates to the other 3.
Yeah, it
The
does.
other Charles Eaton does. That's the
Yeah.
same one.
It's the same
Yeah.
set of properties.
Yeah.
The September special request was, that's the Wall Street Theater property, and according to our assessor, that is supposed to be exempt. So it was not exempt on the grand list, so he had to remove it. And they paid the bill in the meantime, so we have to refund it because he's since exempted the property from taxation. So
Okay.
there were four. And I mean, the August one, those folks have been waiting for a while. I don't know if it would be good if we could pass it along to the council, but if you can't, you can't. I leave that up to you.
No, I think we should pass it along. I mean, we've had the money and we got to give it back.
Yes, I agree.
You know, we'd be after them like a thief in the night if they owed us the money, but then we should be doing this. It should be the same. We should do the same thing if we owe people money. So
Yeah, and we're pretty good with that regard. We're very good with refunds, and I actually track it to see, because I don't want people to wait for their money regardless of how much it is. So, you know, a lot of those small ones where you see a $40 or a $50 credit, we try to turn that around, and we're issuing refunds every week. But there is a process to go through for internal controls and so forth, that multiple people are looking at that, but we take it pretty seriously because we do not want to make people wait for their money. Because you're right, we charge interest when they're late, so we want to get them back what they're due. So I would appreciate that very much if you would forward those four along and have it voted on, and then we'll check the minutes and we'll see and proceed.
okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, new business. We can just talk about these. And I don't think there's anything we can't vote on them today because we don't have a quorum. But under new business, A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Newark and Unistat Services to perform financial advisory services for a sum not to exceed $370,500. Account so noted. And I'm going to read both of them together because they do relate to each other. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and Shipman and Goodwin LLP to perform bond counsel services for a sum not to exceed $477,500. Account so noted. These are some fairly significant amounts. So Jared, do you want to give us just an overview of what these are for everybody?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. And I talked a little bit about the first one. In both cases, with both of these contracts, they're related to contracts that were about to expire. and so it was time. They were 5-year contracts, and it was time for us to go out to RFP again. So we did that in both cases. So there was nothing untoward, nothing unusual about this. It was just their contracts had expired. So municipal financial advisor, I talked a bit about this in the Common Council last night. Bill Lindsay of Munistat has been the city's financial advisor for many years. I believe it's at least 10 years, and has done a fantastic job for the city. The municipal financial advisor is our, they guide us through the process of the developing the official statement, and up to the day that we do the bond sale. And so we work on them with timing of, when we're going to do the bond sale, and then kind of work our way backwards to determine when we start. It's about a 2-month long process to start putting together all the information that goes into the official statement. And it really touches on, if not pretty much every department within the city. And it could be something like a legal notifications from Corporation Counsel. They like to know about what our infrastructure assets are. And so we work with DPW on that. Economic development is a huge part, as I mentioned yesterday, and they're actually part of our presentation team, and take up about half of the presentation to let the rating agencies know all the great economic activity that's going on within the city. And so they're a big part of it. So it really touches on all the departments, and it takes, like I said, a couple months to month and a half, a couple months to put together the official statement. And I'm going to send out to you the official statement and the credit reports, as I mentioned last night. So that'll go out to you guys tomorrow. And so we had two firms that bid this year that responded to the RFP. One was obviously Munistat, and the other one was Phoenix. And both were very competent, have a lot of experience within the state. Munistat has a lot more specific experience with Norwalk. I like I like their approach to sales, to the way they do their bond sales, and but mostly they have a lot of institutional knowledge about the city, and so and the price was good too. Their price was right too, so we ended up going with Munistat and staying with them, with the horse that we know. And so yeah, so the $370,000, that's a top amount, the most that we're going to spend on them in the next 5 years, and it's going to vary. It'll probably be something less than that, and the factors are going to be there's a flat amount that we pay them for the year, and so there's that portion of their bill. And then beyond that, there's going to be an amount that's related to, will fluctuate depending on the size of the sale, depending on the size of the bond sale, and also whether or not we're issuing bond anticipation notes. So there would be an extra fee for bond anticipation notes, an extra, as well as the fee for doing general obligation bonds. And then there could be another component, which I think may be coming up here in the next year or two, to do a reissuance. So for getting some of the higher interest rate bonds off of our debt and reissuing them to get lower rates. And so there may be something coming up. Bill Lindsay keeps an eye on these things and lets us know there are certain thresholds that are mostly that I think most cities follow a standard that's set by the Government Finance Officers Association to determine whether or not it's worth it to make that leap and to reissue bonds. And so they take a look at what that standard is and whether or not there are any past bond issuances where the rates are high enough and that they're eligible for reissuance, and whether or not to go ahead and do that. So we may see something in the next year or two where we do a reissuance.
I think I asked you, didn't Henry do this a couple of years ago as well?
He may have. He may have. I'm not sure the last time it was done, but yeah, it's not uncommon. It doesn't happen typically it doesn't happen every year, but
Yeah.
I think that normally it might be every 3 to 5 years that you have the opportunity to do it where it makes sense and you're saving money in the long run.
It's something a new CFO always comes in and tells you that his predecessor was sloppy on what the bonds that he got, and you look like a savior because you saved the city so much money.
Yeah,
But that doesn't pay. You wouldn't do that with.
I'm not gonna cast aspersions. I'll leave it at what it is. There are higher interest rate bonds, and we want to make them lower. And everybody's each CFO is dealing with different environments when they issue. So
Yeah, it's always going to be 2020, or hindsight is always 2020. So
yeah.
And
he's I want to just expand on what the role is too, because it's not only getting involved in the bond issuance and bond sale, but also working with us as we're putting together the capital plan to kind of reflect on what the credit report said in terms of what our maximum debt load should be to keep us out of that upper threshold and keep us under that, so that we don't run into the jeopardy of exceeding that amount and potentially causing us to get a negative outlook or a rating decrease. So he's helpful in that too, and looking at all the different aspects and all the different factors and what the report cards look like for each of the rating agencies and what they're looking at. So he's helpful in that sense as well.
would it be worth? And then I'll put this to Ann and Joe on. Do you think it'd be worth getting a presentation to the council, maybe after the elections, particularly when we're getting into the budget process, that these are all factors that should be taken into consideration when we're putting a budget together? I mean, it's not like you could just dip your hand in the cookie jar, and like I heard somebody say the other night, that we if we need money, we could always go to the rainy day fund and tap that. I mean, one of the things that in order to get this bond sale as successful as it was, they do look at the fund balance, the rainy day fund, and see how you're using that and how frugally you manage it. I don't know whether I'll leave it to you guys whether.
Yeah, I mean, I have couple of thoughts on that. I think Jared's been really actually very clear about that relationship between the health of that general fund and our ability to get the lower interest bonds, and that there's a relationship there. I mean, I think that's been said. I think the residents of Norwalk don't always understand that as clearly. I think we could be as council people, we could be communicating that much more clearly to people, especially around, these really important budget items that affect families.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think anything that we can do to kind of, you know, keep that messaging going would be good. But
Yeah.
I do feel like that relationship has been discussed very competently by Jared to us as a council. I don't know, what do you think, Johan?
No, I was gonna say, I think, no, I think certainly it's certainly important because there's a lot of lack of information, lack of knowledge on, let's say, like the methodology with respect to S&P or Moody's. And I think some of those things can easily be explained. Each one there's like a percentage, like debt service is like only 10%, leverage is like 30%. But I think if there's a way to just succinctly present that, to be able to help residents understand the importance of all these interactive parts and how you can't just, can't just go into the rainy day fund, which actually it shouldn't be called rainy day fund on fund balance, but whatever. But I think something like that, something very simple, I think could be put together. I don't know, Jared, if you've done anything like that, or we can certainly help in your experiences in other municipalities.
Sure. Typically we usually once a year we have Bill come before the BET and do exactly that type of presentation. And so I'm sure he'd be willing to do, if you want another one for the Common Council, I'm sure he'd be willing to do it. But if there were a way to combine them too, that might be
Oh, yeah.
well, that might be
we
helpful
could,
as
there's
well.
no reason why we couldn't do a joint
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. I think
I
that's a
think
good idea.
jointly would be great. I mean, we've been trying to increase that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when we went through the charter revision, it certainly was a point of a lot of conversation. And I think that some members of the council don't understand possibly what the BET really does. Yeah, I think let's try and get a joint meeting with them, and maybe we do it probably after the election, so you won't see us there.
You, we're working on the calendars for the capital budget and for the operating budget. And so what I'll do, I'll kind of flag this and we can talk to both Ed Abrams and to you and to Barbara and see if we can come up with a date where we can get both together at once and do an overview of it. I think that would work out.
I think it'd be great for the council, and then also if we did it in the council chambers and we open it up and get some people there, and it's pre-budget, and so it's going to be sticking in your mind when people are
Right, and maybe some better messaging through our newsletter or whatever, or through our, how we reach out in district to residents to, encourage them to come to chambers to hear and learn.
Yeah, for sure. Jim, I think it's a good idea because it's the bedrock of any city's economic health. So I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Maybe you could present your statistics that you're working on.
Oh yeah, that too. People probably they'll probably throw tomatoes at me.
But I think that I'll talk to Barbara about it too, and then maybe get Ed and we can have a conversation with him. That'd be great.
Good.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Terrific. All right, so where am I here?
We got the other contract.
Yeah, the second
So these two contracts are 5-year amounts.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And this, you want me to start the second one, the bond council?
Yeah, why don't you just,
Sure.
we can go through that
So
quickly.
this is our bond council is because the bond sales can be very they can be legally very, very complicated, and we need to make sure that we're following all the rules. And so there is we hire an outside firm. And so this is the firm that we hired, is Shipman and Goodwin. They're our current bond counsel, also have been for the past 5 years as well. There were 4 firms that responded to the RFP. It was Shipman and Goodwin, Pullman and Comley, Robinson and Cole, and Harris Beach. The 3 Shipman, Pullman, and Robinson and Cole, they all have pretty significant experience working with municipalities within Connecticut. The 4th one, not as much, and so we ended up interviewing only those 3. And all 3 of them are capable, qualified to do the job. And again, it was a situation where Shipman's price was very good, and they have the experience of working with the city and the history of working with the city. And so we ended up going with Shipman. So they, as I mentioned, so they were in actually yesterday, because there's similar to any kind of major transaction, whether it's a home or personally a home or any kind of business sale. These sales take a number of days. So we had the bond sale on September 3rd. We had the bond closing to make it official on the 10th. So yesterday. And so they're our main consultants for that. And they come in, we sit down with the mayor, and with Irene, and Chitsame, and that we have, probably 20 or 30 different documents that we have to sign and get stamped and make sure everything's on the up and up, so that the investors and investment banks, have the assurance that everything is being done properly. And so we need a firm to come in and help us with that. They also, we reach out to them on an ad hoc basis throughout the year. So if there's a special appropriation, or we need to make sure that we have proper language for a resolution, that we reach out to them to help us out with that as well.
Well, I think it's really important that we get somebody that can do that kind of thing. I used to think that working in a manufacturing company was complicated, until I started to look at some of this stuff here. This is,
Yeah.
makes your eyes bleed.
Yep.
Johan, you had something to say?
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, Jared, beyond like costs and like ad hoc requests that they satisfy, do they come in with any new added value or like a fresh perspective, in this new contract, or is that really not the way that it works? They just, I mean, they'll come and keep providing the same level of service that they have provided historically.
Yeah, it's really, we look at, as far as the service, there's not a lot of variation between the firms. There's not a lot of opportunity for being creative or being innovative. So it's really about just, can they do the job and are they responsive? And those are really those are the things that we look at, and we've been very satisfied with what they've done for us over the past. And so we're very happy with that.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Jared.
But it's like you want to go get the guy who's going to be able to keep you out of jail. And these things are so complicated to put together, and so many things, so many different levers that you've got in these packages that, as good as you are, you could probably do it yourself, but you don't know what you're missing. So it's really belt and suspenders here, and it certainly makes all the sense in the world, no matter what they're going to charge you. it's going to keep you, like I said, it's going to keep you out of jail. And not, I don't mean that, I mean that figuratively, not literally. So, I mean, it's the price of doing business. Whereas Munistat, though, I think might be more of you could probably recognize some efficiencies and save money with the advice that you get from them.
And even there, it's because we're working with in a lot of ways. It becomes tricky, and I don't think you really want to get in a situation where you're trying to time the market in terms of bond sales. That gets really dicey for the how often we issue bonds and for the prep time. Like I said, it takes 2 months, and so for us to decide spur of the moment, like, hey, we want to do this, we know that there's going to be a 2-month lag from that time, and so many different things can happen in that 2-month period, especially in this political and economic environment. There's a lot of things that can change over 2 months, and so we've stayed on around the same cycle. We think that at the end of August, early September, there seems to be a lot of money out there that investors have, and it's worked out pretty well for us. And so, kind of the same thing holds true there. Are they responsive to us? And are they monitoring things when it comes to refunding of bonds? That's a big thing too. But again, not rocket science, and most of them adhere to that same threshold that the industry is looking for when they're looking at bonds when they're looking at refunding of bonds. And so there's not a lot of rocket science, but it can get dicey. And Bill's been very helpful, as I mentioned, when it comes to capital planning as well. So.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thanks very much, Jared. I know that I'm sorry we don't have a quorum because it would make life a little bit easier. But I think that I think it was good that we did have the meeting and since we didn't have a meeting last month, so it's we can move it forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, I don't think it's not an official action, but you might take a census or get a straw poll from the members that are here now. Just if you want to go into the full council with something, you could do that. And like I said, it's short of taking a vote, but it's something.
Well, what we usually do is I'll send an email around to everybody and say, hey, this is what we discussed at the meeting. And is anybody have any questions on this? Otherwise, we're just going to push it straight in. And then at the caucus, somebody will raise a question, ask what it's about, and have a brief conversation about it. Usually, it's not too lengthy. Nobody wants to dig into a lot of these things anyway. So,
right.
No, I don't think it should be a problem. I don't know. You guys think there's any issues here? I don't think.
No, I don't think it's any issue. I think that's a good idea what Jared proposed, and yeah, what you're saying, James, because I'm looking at your thing, Jim.
James.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. It's fine. I'm good with
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send something around to everybody in the next. Well, maybe I'll wait until we get closer to the next meeting. Otherwise, everybody will forget what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Me included. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Jared. I appreciate it. And Chitsme, if you're still there, I don't know. I can't see.
I have one
What's that?
more item, just quickly. I just want to thank you, Jim, for stepping up into the interim chairmanship And
you.
I appreciate it. You know, it's extra work and we're in very good hands and I appreciate you.
Well, I think Greg would want us to go on and I think he and I kind of agreed with one another and had the same approach. So, you know, let's just
Yeah.
keep it going. So, but thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to, we can't vote.
Can't
but,
vote. So,
So just a good night. All right. Thanks,
Good night.
Jerry.
It's
Thanks,
just good
Jim.
night.
Bye, Ann. Thank you.
Okay,
Just
good
a night.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Good night.